Proud of family farm heritage and social media pioneer as a pork producer with Randy Curless. Welcome, Randy.
Hi, Jim. Glad to be able to be with you today.
Yeah, I know we've talked about this podcast for a long time now, and lots of good things to talk about. But the first thing that stood out was you, I think, took charge as a pioneer in leading social media for pig farmers to introduce to consumers what it's like on a pig farm. And the reason why I know this was in 2010, I think we connected on social media. SwineWeb was big on social media. You were owner of Liberty Swine Farms, and you did some great things on social media. Can you talk about that?
Sure. We got started, actually, it was by accident in a way. My what was that? MySpace had come out in 2005 or 6, something like that. And my employees tried to get me on it. You know, you got to get on this new thing, and it was all new. And I was like, nah, I don't want to do that. Well, my employees took it up on themselves to set up an account in my name and wouldn't give me the password. So they're putting up stuff, posting things about me and posting things about the farm. And it was at that time I kind of saw, well, there's a value here. I could take this and run with it and kind of, an open the barn doors concept. And about that time, Facebook came along. So I switched over from MySpace over to Facebook and started out, like I said, at that time, I had it called Liberty Swine Farms, ran that way for about 10 years or so. And then one day I logged on and the Facebook police had caught me and said, no, you can't do that. You have to have it under your own name or start a page. So I switched it over my name, but I started a page with Liberty Swine. But we had quite a long run with that. And I don't know, I think got up to close to 3,000 followers on that. And it was very well received. I mean, when I posted pictures and just common everyday things that happen, we're moving sows into the farrowing house, just put up a short video or pictures or something of what we're doing and a little bit of an explanation. And it was all very, very well received. I'd get questions from all kinds of people all over the United States and even actually all over the world. I actually had several questions from people who had their own restaurants and stuff like that. And, they were curious as to, okay, how do you raise pigs? Why do you put them in those crates? And, things like that. So we had an opportunity to kind of reach out, tell our story and explain our story. And it worked out very well.
And you were connected with the versatile white meat. I think that was a thing back then too.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, kind of had forgotten about that. Yeah. I had kind of become friends with James. His last name escapes me at the moment, but
Solomon.
Okay, yeah, we'd kind of been like you and I. We were friends over social media, and I'd become friends with him, and he was really pushing pork and the advantages of that. So, yeah.
Yeah, you did a great job with it. And I think you paved the way for people like Aaron Brenneman, Wanda Pache, and even now Sawyer and Torque.
Oh, absolutely.
And what they're doing.
Absolutely. It's like I told you, I mean, I kind of maybe helped blaze the trail, but then these guys all came along and just paved it and, made it a great freeway of information now. So
you're really proud of your family farm heritage. So you have many generations of family rich agriculture success in Wabash, Indiana. So when you ran Liberty, you had great pride as a producer. Can you talk about the heritage, the generations before you too?
Sure. On some of our ground, I would have been the 7th generation to have actually farmed it. The particular ground that I built, Liberty Swine Farms, Liberty was built as a 600 sow farrow to finish operation. It was built with the idea that it could be converted over. So we later added an offsite nursery and took all the nursery rooms, changed them to farrowing. So ultimately, in the end, it was about a 12 or 1300 sow farrow to wean operation. But that was built on the site, the original site in which my Curless family moved to Wabash. I'm not exactly sure what date that was, but I know we we qualified for the Indiana Hoosier Homestead Award, which awards people that have at least 100 years. We got that, and my dad was alive and able to receive that with me. I think originally our farm was kind of started in 1876, I believe it was, something in that area. So then, like I said, my family lived on this site where I built Liberty. My first employees still lived in the same homestead that my family was raised in, and so yeah, there's quite a history there. When I came back from Purdue, I graduated in '79. I came back and started farming with my grandfather and my dad, and that's when Curless Farms Incorporated was started. But so then later on, my son came along too and farmed with me for a while. He kind of decided that maybe wasn't his cup of tea, but there for a while we kind of had generation 8, I guess.
Was it always a generation of pig farms?
I've been told we had swine through most of that, but we had dairy. My dad was actually into dairy, sheep, and chickens. I got in on the tail end of the sheep and chickens, and then we had several beef cattle. We had a 80 cow calf, herd, and then we, on top of that, we bought about 250 stocker cattle and fed them out. So I've had a lot of experience with a lot of things, and of course, all along we raised corn, beans, wheat, and then usually hay or alfalfa. So.
So how long did you run Liberty, and why did you close it?
I built Liberty in 1992 and sold it in 17, so it to be about 25 years. I think as far as why, it just, when Ryan, was my son, decided that the way he put it to me was there's got to be a less stressful way to make a buck, and he wanted to go out and find that. And when he left, it just wasn't quite as fun anymore. It just felt like, every one of us who farm, we know it, every day's a battle of some kind. And you're fighting the weather, you're fighting the bank, you're fighting, whatever obstacles or pop up that week or whatever. And it just got to be less fun when I didn't have a succeeding generation to fight for. So there were one day I was, filling out the forms. We had lost money in, what it was, 16 or something like that. And hogs wasn't all that great of a year. Filling out the bank forms to get an operating loan to keep on going. And I called my wife in and I said, I'm not sure why I'm doing this. I'm still young enough. I could go out and I'd really like to work outside of the barn for a while. And I wanted to stay in the swine industry, but I want to do something else. I mean, I've been in the barns for 25, 30 years and that's all I've ever done. So I said, I think I would like to do something different. So, and that's what we had a neighbor not too far from us that wanted to expand. So he purchased Liberty, and I ended up here.
And I think on a side note, you guys tore down the old homestead and then you built a new house right on site, right? A little bit.
Yeah, we did. Yes, we did. That tore that down. That thing had brick walls that were a foot thick, no insulation at all, but it was built well. So yeah, we did remove that and build a house, and we always had employees that lived there, so they were lived on site. So that worked out well.
So why does the family farm heritage mean so much today still?
Well, to me, it's just great pride in what our family was able to build. pride in the fact that our family, was able to successfully farm and make that a business that basically for my dad and I, that's all we did was farm. I mean, Dad, once I came back, Dad built his own accounting business, and he left the farm and went into his accounting business. But but so many people work, have to work on in town and then farm on the side. But Dad and I were both able to make that a full-time living and raise our families that way. I was raised on the farm. I mean, the minute I got home from school, I had chores to do. I went out and I fed the sows and took care of the pigs. So, I wasn't watching TV or playing Game Boy or anything. I mean, that's just what I did, and that's what I love to do. And come back in when it started getting dark and get my homework done.
So it's led to the next chapter at Pig Tek. You've been there for a few years now as a producer services manager. And I know you talk openly and glowingly about how you like working with producers and helping producers.
Sure.
So can you talk about this role a little bit?
Yes. I mean, officially I was hired, and my official title is a marketing specialist. But, as many times as happens, you're hired into one position, but it kind of morphs into something else. And so mine kind of has taken over as the way I introduce myself is producer services. And I work with our dealers, Chore Time and Pig Tek. Pig Tek, by the way, is the swine division of Chore Time, or Chore Time Brock. And so I work for them, and we sell through a dealer network. So I would not actually be able to sell product to you, Jim Eady, as a producer, but we would sell through a dealer that would be near you. So I work with all of our dealers throughout actually all of North South America, and then also we got a group in Vietnam, Pig Tek Asia. So I work with those, but I also have the luxury of being able to go out and meet with producers and meet with our dealers who maybe they have a producer that either has a problem, or they have a producer that wants to know about some new product. So I get to go out and do that. I'm also I'm the person who gets us all signed up for the shows and things like that to make sure we're appearing at the state shows and the World Pork that's coming up. I do that, and I do a lot of the work, the background work on getting the information for our sales brochures. We've got a whole art department that makes it look all pretty and wonderful, but they got to get that information from somewhere, and I'm usually the guy that helps gather that up for them.
So you're used to being a manager from running your own business on the farm. I know at Pig Tek, you've taken leadership beyond your current role. So what's driving you at this stage in your career?
Well, when I was hired, and the sales manager and then the general manager who met with me when I first expressed interest in the job, because I went to them and I said, hey, I'm available. I'm looking for something. Do you have a spot for me? And they called me in, and the one thing I remember specifically telling them was that if you're going to hire me, the only way I'm going to be able to do this job is I'm going to do it like I own the company. I realize I don't, but that's the only way I can work, because that's all I've done my whole life is I do it the way I feel it needs to be done, just like it was my company, and doing things right. And that's really what drives me. I mean, I'm very, very fortunate in that, I mean, basically, we have a meeting every morning and we all kind of set our agenda, and here's the priorities, what needs to be done. But other than that, I'm pretty much on my own to do what I know needs to get done. So I don't have anybody micromanaging me. I can kind of take care of myself, which is good. I'm bullheaded enough. It might be hard if I had somebody thinking they're going to micromanage me. It probably wouldn't work.
Well, with that being a manager, you were president of Indiana Pork Association before. Can you reflect on this and where do state associations stand today?
Yes, I was on the state board from I think 2002 to 2007. I was president in '06. That was the year of swine flu, if you remember that outbreak. And I found myself in front of a ton of media outlets trying to explain what swine flu was, and that it, was not something that the consumers need to be afraid of and all that. So, but state organizations are very, very important as far, in my opinion, because they're the boots on the ground in the states. They know what the state issues are. The state issues in Indiana are probably different than they are in North Carolina and Iowa. And it's the state organizations that help keep national grounded. They feed all that information into our national organizations so that they can funnel check off money in where is needed. And so, I feel the states have a great responsibility and are doing basically a really good job of getting that done.
What made you want to be president?
I was just kind of a natural succession there. I really, by nature, I don't consider myself necessarily the type of leader person. I actually love working in the background and the supporting roles, I guess you would call it. But there, you kind of naturally you worked up to vice president, and then the next year you're president. And so that's what I did, and it was fun. It was enjoyable. I mean, I got to do a lot of things that were way outside of my comfort zone, which is good because I'm the type of guy who has to be kind of pushed to do that. I was able to go on a Chinese a visit with our lieutenant governor at that time, and that was certainly way outside of my comfort zone. But a group of Indiana business people, and I represented Indiana Pork in their interest, and we got to go over to China and visit with a group there. So it was very, very good.
Yeah, we enjoyed working with you then too. I remember you had a girl on board, Sarah Sargent Ford.
Yes.
And we would get press releases and get them up from what's going on. And it was still revolutionary at that time because we could turn around and put up a press release for you guys instantly. And I don't know if the magazines could. So I just remember that was a hot time then, working with your team and getting out news releases and getting it out to the industry.
Right.
Yeah. Now, the producers you work with now, what are some of the biggest challenges they're facing? I know we all know some of the big challenges. Maybe that is your answer, but is there anything outside the box or that we haven't heard that producers are facing now?
Oh, I'm sure you've pretty well heard them all. But I know, I mean, anytime I meet with a producer or a dealer, whatever, I mean, the fact that, okay, I'm here to help you. I want to help you. I need to know what your issues are. How can I help you? I guarantee you within the first three things they're going to say is anything you can do to help me with labor. So, and as far as that goes, no, I can't really help with that. But yet on the other hand, we can, in our engineering of things, we can try to gear things towards making the labor that you do have more efficient, where maybe one person can take care of X number more pigs or something like that. Or there's a lot of new technology coming out where, you can have barn monitors that actually listen for cough 24/7 and things like that. So anything from our standpoint that we can do that would help along that lines is something we would like to do. But I mean, other than that, it's pretty typical things as far as problems. I mean, there's always I think the industry is kind of consolidating. So you've got the integrators who are getting larger. Some are very fine with that. The Liberty was a 1200 South Ferro finish, and those are very, very hard to find anymore. I mean, they're kind of going away. And most of the SAL units that we quote these days are, 5,000, 8,000 SAL units. So I'm not saying you can't compete with a 1200, compete with an 8,000, but there's certain efficiencies that they're going to get being that large. And so the industry is kind of moving that way. So the integrators are maybe owning the sows. But then I know an awful lot of farmers, and they really just enjoy raising the pigs. And so they don't have to mess with the sows and the breeding and the farrowing and all that high risk stuff. They can get a pig in at, whether it's in at weaning or if it's in at 40 pounds, and just kind of take care of him and raise him, and obviously utilize the manure in their cropping program. And so it's for them, it's working out quite well.
So it's a new era in the industry. If you were still a producer now, what's one thing you would do the same and one thing you would do differently?
Boy, as far as differently, I mean, I would probably, and when we were in the process of it, I'd probably move to an electronic sow feeding type program of some type, and go into group housing and ESF of some type. And there's several different ways to do that. But I think the industry is sort of moving that way. That is something that I would probably do. As far as differently, I wish I would have probably taken more time to individually train employees and work with employees a little bit more than I probably did at training and trying to grow them. It just seemed like, I was always so busy doing records, doing things like that, to where I probably neglected some of the training and development that I needed to do. And I know some of the big integrators, once I came with Pig Tek, I mean, I've seen these programs, and I've had experience with them, to where they have quite an onboarding program and a lot of training and employee development, which quite phenomenal. And I think it attributes a lot to their success.
So who are some of your mentors and role models?
Oh, gosh. Caught me off guard on that one. I mean, it's Kerry Kiefaber was a great mentor, role model. He's a veterinarian in this area, and I went to school with Kerry, and then he later, I think at one point, was a vet with Lanco, but he had his own practice. They're close to Wabash, where I was, and then Scott Dees. I mean, there are just several. I mean, even Jim Long. I mean, I've kind of known Jim for quite a while, and he's kind of a character, but he's one that warrants listening to, and he'll say things that maybe I don't quite agree with, but it's like, but I see your point type thing. So
it's kind of what our wives say to us. Yeah, so you got a lot of different mentors and role models and people you follow. So between the war in Ukraine, ASF, COVID, market prices, which current disastrous event do you think has affected you or our industry and will have the longest long-term repercussions that we face?
Wow. I mean, right now, for whatever reason you want to say, that we have high diesel prices, ridiculously high fertilizer prices, and I think certainly the war in Ukraine plays a big part of that. There's probably other reasons for it also, but I think those things are going to really affect, for the long term, affect our producers.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, I don't think there's a question that the most detrimental thing that could happen to our industry is if ASF hit the 48. So that would be absolutely devastating, and I think we're doing the best we can to prepare for it. But yet, how can you prepare for something that's never happened? And so I think, looking ahead to something we hope never ever happens, that is something we need to pull out all the stops to do everything we can to prevent that.
So it's kind of what comes up in every producer roundtable as well, preparing as well as we can, kind of almost a contingency plan for ASF. But like you said, if we haven't dealt with it, we can only prepare as well as we can in case it happens.
Right. And I think COVID and the plant shutdowns kind of gave us a little bit of a taste of what might happen there. But I think it was pretty obvious that we weren't really prepared for that either. So, hopefully they have taken from that and tried to learn and what to do. But again, it's just one of those things that if it happens, it's going to be so devastating that there really isn't a good preparation for it.
Now, I think you had a Jim Long story. I think when we've talked before, you said that he once came to your farm when you and your dad were in Indiana. Is that right? Or what's the story?
Yeah, he did. And this is going to go back into the probably mid to late 70s, I would imagine. But Jim sold bulls and cattle. And I remember we bought a bull off of him, and I want to say it was a Simmental. It was something that, at least for our time, it was rather exotic. And so we bought a bull off of him. That's when I first got to meet Jim. And then later on, as he moved into swine, I know we got some boars off of him that had this white and red roan type color, which was very, very unique at that time. And I remember I'd take my pigs into market, and that's back when we would take them to buying stations. And I still remember the first time I did that, and the guy's looking at it and says, "What in the hell is that?" And they'd never seen a pig that was that color. And so it was unique, and it's just all part of the experience of growing our industry.
Now, I think, so you have a nickname, and I think I know it. And I think the only other person that knows it is someone in your family. Can we kind of bring that out today, Randy?
Oh, I don't care. Sure.
So Teddy. Teddy's the nickname because I think you're a big, big, warm, fuzzy character. You're always so friendly and helpful, and maybe sometimes misunderstood. In person, you might come across as a little bit, just like I do sometimes, a little bit more, not as Teddy, but where did Teddy come from?
My daughter is the one who named me that, and it came from her friends. Her friends always kind of saw me as Shrek. I mean, and a lot of times they would call me that, or she would even call me that. But her friends, there was one time when they said, "We don't want to go with your house because your dad scares us." And she said, "No, my dad's just a big teddy bear." And she told him, she said, "Just call him Teddy." And so that's kind of where that came from.
It still holds its weight today.
Well, very few people know that until this comes out, right?
Now, so as we've talked about previous stories, Jim Long on the farm, I feel like we're approaching a time in the industry with a new guard. So the evolution's been happening for a while. So do you think the key to success in the pork industry is establishing strong relationships, or should our ideas and the value we have hold weight in success? Because I find on both fronts, I go back and forth, and I'm trying to figure this out. And I just wanted your input on this, because as the new guard's coming in, do we need to focus on relationship building, or do our ideas and the value we bring, should that hold enough weight?
Well, I was always taught that your integrity is what makes you. And you need to know what's right and do it and always do it. And so I think farmers are trusted overall, and I think they need to hold on to that, and they need to hold that, affirm. But so as far as that goes, but is it enough? I think that's where I kind of get tripped up. And I mean, Grandpa always said, as long as you work hard, you're going to make it. And quite honestly, I just don't think working hard is enough anymore. You have to work incredibly smart, and you have to know a lot of different things and do things right. And so I think that integrity and that, like you'd mentioned, that goes along with it. I think that's incredibly important, but I don't think it's enough. I think you're going to have to bring in relationships and kind of the integration and the working together into it to succeed.
Really appreciate you joining us, Randy, and everything that you bring to the swine industry. I find you're very enlightening. You have a wealth of knowledge, and it's great to connect with you always.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for inviting me here and pulling me out of my comfort zone once again.
I'll see you at the World Pork Expo.
Yeah, I'll be there. Look forward to it. Thank you.